herkese merhaba. Bu hafta Birleşmiş Milletler dünya liderlerini ağırlamaya hazırlanıyor. 80. yaşını kutlayan Birleşmiş Milletler aynı zamanda ciddi bir finansal krizle de karşı karşıya. 10 milyar dolara yakın bütçesinin 1/4'ini Amerika Birleşik Devletleri sağlıyor. Ancak Trump yönetimi döneminde bütçede önemli kesintiler yapıldı. ABD birçok BM kuruluşundan çekildi ve uluslararası anlaşmalardan da ayrıldı. Bugün konuğum Birleşmiş Milletler'de kritik görevlerde yer almış ABD'nin eski büyükelçilerinden Robert Wood. Ambassador Wood, thank you so much for joining me on CNBC.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin with the immediate challenge. How serious is the financial crisis the United Nations going through right now?
It's serious, almost catastrophic. The Trump administration has proposed a number of cuts to not only the regular budget, but to the voluntary contributions that the United States makes to the UN every year. And on top of that, when you have other countries that are pulling back their investments in the UN, it's becoming a catastrophic situation. The liquidity crisis continues with no end in sight. And so I think everyone here is going to be on tenterhooks for President Trump's speech on Tuesday. And everyone is hoping that he will lay down some kind of a vision for how the United States sees the UN going forward. I don't know that we're going to actually have that, but I hope that the Trump administration will show some signs of recommitting to the UN going forward. Everyone understands the UN needs to be reformed, and the Secretary General has taken some steps with regard to UN 80 to try to bring about a rationalization of the UN and its resources. Hopefully that's something that can be built upon, and hopefully the Trump administration won't resort to drastic cuts or further drastic cuts than they've already indicated they're going to be making.
You have spent quite a long time at the United Nations. What impact do you think will this financial crisis have on peacekeeping operations, on humanitarian operations?
It's going to have a huge impact. When we talk about the humanitarian system that the Trump administration wants to see reformed, as I think we all do in many ways, but he wants to have a rethink of the entire humanitarian operation within the UN system. And what that spells to me is disaster on the horizon because, again, as I said, the cuts that he is proposing, the United States provides 75% under the 2023 budget, and that's the latest figures we have. 75% of the voluntary contributions, 24% of the regular budget. If you're talking about pretty much almost wiping out the 75%, and no other country standing up to replace that, or other countries to replace that, it's going to be a huge disaster. The needs are so great in the humanitarian system, and the UN is not able to cope. Peacekeeping. The Trump administration has said that it wants to emphasize one of its priorities will be peace. Well, part of peace is peace building and peacekeeping, and we need to fund those. Those need to be continued to be funded. Otherwise, the costs are going to be so much greater down the road should those conflicts become worse or even spread throughout a particular region.
Ambassador, with China stepping up financially and Russia using the Security Council very often to veto, to shield itself, is U.S. influence at the UN eroding with the Trump administration and his budget cuts?
I certainly hope not, but I do worry about this new era of great power competition. And back in the old days, it used to be the United States and the Soviet Union on different sides. Now you have a new great power, China, that is exercising a lot of influence in the UN, not only through its contributions to the regular budget, but also through bullying. And when you have the two of them working together, trying to remake the UN into an authoritarian image of themselves, this is quite scary for the rules-based order. And I would like to see the Trump administration, or at least President Trump, speak in his address to say that the rules-based system still matters. I don't know that we're going to see that, but I think that's what a number of countries would like to see.
And today, the UK, Australia, and Canada recognize Palestine as a state. Do you think the US should consider doing the same?
No, I think our position across administrations has been that the future of the possibility of a Palestinian state needs to come through negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. what we're seeing from some of Israel's allies, meaning, Britain, France, Canada, Australia, this premature recognition, it's for many of them, for them, it is in essence just an exercise of feel-good diplomacy. It isn't going to have a major impact in terms of determining whether a Palestinian state comes about. That needs to come about through those negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. And I worry that because of these pronouncements, Israel will take an even harder line. And the far right in Israel will have a greater say now, or at least their views will take on even greater importance in terms of what happens in the future between Israel and the Palestinians. So I'm afraid that these, statements of official recognition are not going to help the process of two-state solution, which I think is on life support at the moment at best.
The Trump administration also denied a visa to the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, and the UN allowed him to speak by video. Do you think Washington made the right call? And what does this mean for the UN's host country obligations?
Well, as a host country, we are required to allow visiting representatives who have business at the UN to attend. This is an issue we've had to deal with during my time and in previous UN administrations. And there is within the 2014 Foreign Relations Act a provision that the United States, if it views any representatives coming to the UN who may be a threat, either pose a terrorism threat or a threat, an overall threat to America's national security interest, that they can deny that person entry. There's the question of whether that supersedes international law. It's usually international law that supersedes domestic law. But let's face it, every country, if they feel a threat by someone visiting, will take the steps they're going to take to deny that individual entry into the United States. It's unfortunate that the administration has chosen to do that, because I think it just draws more attention to the issue and makes Mahmoud Abbas much more of a martyr than otherwise would have happened had he come here. But that's a decision of the administration. And it's unfortunate, but that's where we are.
And Ambassador, there's been discussions and recently a speculation, though denied, that the UN could one day leave New York if U.S. support weakens. Should the UN stay in New York?
Look, the UN should stay in New York. This is its home. New York is the greatest city on earth. It has such a diverse set of cultures, peoples from all over the world. This is the place for the UN. I hope that the UN will stay here in New York. And that's not just me speaking as a native New Yorker, but as the fact that the UN belongs here. It's such a part of the fabric of New York. And I think New York is very much the part of everyone who works here, their personal fabric. So I'd hate to see that happen. And I don't think it will.
And looking back at your time at the UN, was there a negotiation you had with Turkey, your Turkish colleague, that really stuck with you? Maybe a story or an anecdote you could share with us?
Well, I worked very closely with the former Turkish ambassador here, Feridun, and we were working together on Afghanistan, trying to work on a resolution that would support women's rights, girls' rights to education, and try to map out a way forward for the UN with regard to Afghanistan. Feridun, who is just a tremendous diplomat, a very, 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 very skilled diplomat. He undertook a report that was the Secretary General asked him to undertake about how to move forward on Afghanistan going forward. And it's hard work, but his skill that he brought to the conversations, and I witnessed I was in many of the meetings and had discussions with him, but I've watched him engage with others. And he's a very committed diplomat. And so we've always had great relations with the Turkish mission here. We've worked very closely together. Turkey's an important country for the United States, for the world. We look to see Turkish leadership on a range of issues, not only in that region, but also the broader Middle East. So I hope that the Trump administration will work closely with the leadership of President Erdogan and to help improve the situation not only in Afghanistan, but in the broader Middle East.
And finally, Ambassador, President Trump is about to address the UN General Assembly on Tuesday, and everybody wants to know what messages he will give to the world leaders. What do you expect him to say?
Well, from what I understand, he's going to focus on three areas: peace, sovereignty, and liberty. Liberty, I think, meaning freedom of speech, freedom of expression worldwide. That's fine. The world looks forward to hearing that. But I think what the world wants to hear is the United States going to recommit to the United Nations? Because all of the signals and signs that they're getting are that the United States wants to pull back. And he's going to be meeting with the Secretary General as well. And that meeting, that is, I don't want to understate the importance of that meeting, because it is an important one for the Secretary General to get a sense, as through President Trump's speech, to give the world a sense of what are the American priorities. Are you committed to the United Nations? The United Nations is in terrible need right now, as we've talked about. And they don't want to see or hear that the administration is going to pull away from the UN, is going to throw away the idea of multilateralism and focus solely on U.S. national interests. U.S. national interests are important for Americans and absolutely should be so. But there's a broader community out there in the United States that believes we need to be engaged. And my last point on this will be basically, what could be more America first than working with other countries to help achieve your priorities, your national priorities, as well as shared priorities? So my hope is that America first doesn't mean America alone. America first can be done and should be done through cooperation with partners.
Ambassador Wood, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.